I'm happy to start the session. So today is the session number 10. We've been already online for 3 weeks. It's our 4th week. And this week, we will be discussing policymaking, and there will be 2 sessions. Today's session is dedicated to the foundation of policymaking, and we have our dear friend and colleague, Jahangir Selimkhanov, who will be a moderator of this session. Together with Gabrielė Žaidytė, the advisor of cultural affairs to the Prime Minister of Lithuania. They will be speaking about what is cultural policy, why is it important, and on several examples from Europe and particularly of Lithuania, we will see the practical application of policymaking. I would like to speak very briefly about Jahangir Selimkhanov and his contribution to cultural policy and cultural landscape, not only of Azerbaijan, but in a greater region and a wider geography. Especially in the absence of formal education, having mentorship is very important, and I could proudly say that most of the cultural workers in Azerbaijan have went through the school of Jahangir Selimkhanov. He is an advisor to UNESCO. He's an expert of UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage national expert. He is also been recently elected into Administrative Council of the International Funds for the Promotion of Culture, IFPC. And those who are following his projects could see that there is a constellation of a lot of projects related to music, both classical, national, and an interesting combination of the two and various genres. He's also a curator of a Nasimi Festival, a festival that takes place in Baku and Shamaha, Azerbaijan, since 2018. And it's a festival, international festival of poetry, art, and spirituality. So I would be very grateful, Jahangir Malim, if you now take the floor and introduce your colleague, Gabrielė, to us and for the audience. Thank you.
Hello. I'm glad to see everybody here, to see or to hear at least, or feel everybody here. And I would like to apply this greeting in different languages. Salam hamını burada görmeye ve en azından eşitmeye ve duymaya çok şadam. Sveiki labai malonu jūs pamatyti. Bu Litva dilindeydi. It was in Lithuanian and now in Swedish. Hey, jag är glad att se dig. Now I have pleasure to introduce my colleague, whom I know for many years already, and Gabrielė. We met with Gabrielė in Baku. For the first time, I invited her to lead a short course on cultural policy and arts management for our students in Azerbaijan. Many years ago, it was at least more than 10 years ago. And then we also meet with Gabrielė at European Cultural Parliament. It is an international NGO which has members from all countries of Council of Europe, practically from all European countries. So Gabrielė has extensive practice as organizer of cultural projects and initiator of cultural projects. She teaches for many years in different universities in Vilnius and also gives lectures abroad. And for several years, she worked in Lithuanian embassy on diplomatic service, Lithuanian embassy in Ukraine and in parallel in Georgia. And then for a few years also in Berlin, in Lithuanian embassy in Germany. Recently, I was aware that Gabrielė is preparing policy, cultural component of the election program for a party, which fortunately won these elections. And now Gabrielė is in a unique position because in many cases, people who advise on culture or who develop cultural policies are not responsible for its implementation. So it's a task of different people. But in this rare case, now when the party has become ruling, Gabrielė Žaidytė has been invited as an advisor to Prime Minister, which is very high position, and at the same time, it's very high responsibility. So my interest, first of all, will be to share with the audience this unique experience, because now she has an access to implementing what was dreamed about or planned or engineered. But first of all, I would like to share with our audience, I understand that the majority of our participants are not dealing with very abstract and general notions. So we would like not to turn this meeting into a short lecture, a crash course on cultural policy to explain all the notions and all the problems. I would like to make it interesting for practitioners so that they could get more clear understanding what is it about from the cases. That's why I also asked my colleague to present us really encouraging and interesting cases, inspiring cases from her practice in Lithuania. But first of all, I would like Gabrielė to present current situation in cultural policy. So, because policy actually, what means policy? I would like to say that in English there is difference between policy and politics. In many other languages, it is the same word. For example, in Russian, it's politika. In Azerbaijani, it is siyaset, which makes it sometimes confusing for many people to understand. Actually, policy is a course of action adopted or created in response to public problems. So if there are problems, so how we will approach them, how we will find solutions. That is policy. How it is, let's say, explained in English. And my question to Gabrielė will be to start with which were the problems and which were the new problems, because of course each country is guided and managed by some set of tools and actions. So cultural policy is not invented right now. So what were the new challenges which you had before the new team which was joining the elections, and what they asked you about to point out in your cultural strategy? So it will be interesting to share with our audience so that they know that, first of all, which were the problems and which solutions you were trying to propose, please.
Thank you very much, Ashley, for inviting me. I'm really very honored and I'm really glad to have a possibility to participate in your really great project. I was really amazed how great you did all preparation process. So thank you, really, thank you very much. And how I thought, I'm really honored and I was really happy getting the invitation from you. So I thought, well, it's really as well a great possibility to get back in touch to Jahangir Selimkhanov, whom I know, as you already noticed, well, I don't know, many years. We know each other really many years, probably more. Jahangir is 10. 10 is very moderate way to say how many projects we did and when we met actually. So thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm really, how I thought, I'm really not just happy and glad, but I'm really very honored to be with you today. So thank you very much as well for a so great introduction. I didn't know if I really did everything you mentioned, probably. Really, I have at the moment, well, very unique, probably, possibility to implement the program once I wrote together with my colleagues. I should mention as well that I'm not a member of a party which won the elections. I was invited as an expert for culture policy, and well, and at the moment, of course, I see it from both sides. One is to write and to know it from very theoretical side, and to think and to reflect and to somehow to try to organize all issues, you know, and to put in the program. And another thing is when you are on the side of an implementation, and then you see really what's possible and what is not. So I'm really very privileged to be in this another situation and another side as well, because when I was just a part of cultural field, I always knew probably sometimes better as politicians what is wrong and what is good, and now I'm not so sure, you know. So because really you see it in the mirror from both sides, and what is really important to connect it and to make the best from all what is really possible to make. And unfortunately, of course, not everything is possible. But what was very important in the program, and what is still very important for us, for me, for our Prime Minister, for our government and cultural policy, first of all, I should say that education and culture are our priorities. And I'm absolutely happy about it because of course I see as well the with both parts of politics as very, very much connected. So with the correspondence between education and culture is absolutely non plus ultra, and it's absolutely what we should do, what we should see. And what I noticed that the Europe is going as well to this direction. So culture education, creative processes in education, whatever you call it, doesn't matter, but it's absolutely really a big issue, complicated issue. It's absolutely very important. And of course, when we talk about guidelines in cultural policy, it's cultural diplomacy, of course, culture export, cultural heritage. I don't know, but we still have, even if we are already walking 30 years in independent Lithuania with this big topic, cultural heritage, but we still have a lot of problems, and we always just still are looking for solutions, how we could make the situation better, international connections. Now, of course, everybody are confronted with COVID situation, and in Lithuania we tried as well to find, well, more or less creative solutions how to solve the situation, or probably how to make the life for cultural field as well easier. So really a lot I would like probably to share, just very quickly to go through. I probably would like to ask just to share my slides, second and third, please. I would show you really very quickly what we are identified as our priorities in Lithuanian culture policy. Probably you will find some which are in correspondence with next, please, the second. Thank you very much. which are in correspondence to cultural policy priorities in Azerbaijan. So what we are talking about is, of course, how I already mentioned, sustainable relationship between culture and education, cultural education. And for cultural education, we have many programs for cultural passport, for example, creative relationships, how we talk. So really, really difficult, really different another. What is very important for us as well is social strengthening of culture and art. Open and attracting culture, what means as well regional culture, culture policy in the regions. And if it would be possible, please the second slide. And yes, importance of cultural diplomacy is absolutely as well my topic. It is what I'm really advocating, and we are now trying to find a new way for our Lithuanian Cultural Institute. Like we are trying to make the new concept of our cultural diplomacy concept. Of course, effective legislation of cultural heritage. It is what I already mentioned. Well, and what is really a big topic in Lithuania, but not just in Lithuania, is the society that is immune to digital threats. It's of course connected as well to many topics at the moment which are going into Europe, and of course because of neighborhood and so on and so on. So culture in this context of digital threats and how we through culture could like live in a bit more safe digital situation. It is as well a topic which is coming. And I should say that, for example, now we are talking as well a lot about digital culture in general. So we get European funds and European financing as well for digitalization of cultural projects, which of course means not just for very concrete project, probably for that as well, but the digitalization of culture in general. I mean, really in very conceptualized and very in process which has very clear guideline where we'd like to go with cultural digitalization and what we'd like to get on the end of this process. So it's very shortly where we are going now, and probably if you would somehow compare our Lithuanian priorities with the priorities of, I don't know, different European countries, of course, as well with our neighbors, with Estonians and with Latvians and so on. So you would find more or less the same. So I would say that is just a part of guidelines of priorities which we share with all European space at the moment.
Thank you. Could you please specify a little bit more on some elements which took my attention? For example, regional cultural policy. Just in few words, I understand that we could talk for 1 hour on each of these points, but very shortly, what is behind this slogan, sustainable regional cultural policy?
You know, we just noticed probably as you too, I don't know, but as well, the same in Lithuania, it's the same like in other European countries, that we really see that the difference between cities and between the smaller cities or countryside is really big. And in Lithuania at the moment, we have 41% from the population. We are 3 million, I should say. In Lithuania, we are 3 million. So 41% of 3 million from inhabitants, like 41%, they don't participate in cultural events at all. So it's a big gap. And if we look just to the map, the Lithuanian map, of course, it's absolutely clear that mostly people who are not participating in culture, mostly we are, well, not not from city side, but mostly from regional. So we are really, well, in our foundation, in our biggest Lithuanian foundation, which is responsible for cultural projects, of course, we have as well a big department working with regional culture policy and, well, trying as well to finance a lot of, even if they are not in the same quality, doesn't matter, but just somehow to sustain and somehow to push the projects in the regional in the regions of Lithuania as well. But of course, it's a big issue how it would be possible, how it could be possible, because 16% of this 41%, they say that we would like to participate, but they don't have access, or we don't have any means. We don't have money or whatever. So it means that if we could manage and make the conditions for, probably we would, and then we would have not 41, but probably
much less.
Yeah, much less. So it is what's going about. And of course, it is not about the hard projects. It's not that we are building cultural houses or cultural, no, it's not, because like the infrastructure, we have more or less not such bad situation, but what is really going on about soft power, and of course about the involvement. And this involvement, coming back to my presentation, of course, begins with cultural education. So if we could make really sustainable and good and effective network and systematic cultural education, probably we would solve this problem as well.
Yes, so hopefully.
Very connected.
One more question about cultural diplomacy. I think for many our participants, it is really important, because I also meet people. I'm teaching at the university, and it is a common, let's say, idea. It is really a national cultural narrative that we all have to strive for making our culture better known worldwide. So it's like, especially students in, let's say, national conservatory or let's say University of Culture, when you ask them what is your main task as a career, as a professional, they take that we would like to spread our culture worldwide. Meanwhile, in many countries, especially in Europe, in Western Europe, already many years ago, there is a shift from one-way propaganda, promotion of national culture, to more to collaborative projects when cultural actors or artists from this country are mingling in joint projects and so on. Because only this way you could really promote culture which doesn't have borders, and culture doesn't have how to say it, border police and border armed forces. So we should not safeguard our culture and trying to make an invasion of our culture to other territories, but rather to open up the, let's say, obstacles and barriers in order culture should flow flexibly throughout the world. So what do you think, if you write that it is important that cultural diplomacy, so how do you perceive it and how you implement this slogan?
Absolutely, Jahangir. It's absolutely, it's no question. And there's both sides, of course, that just in this case, culture is really working. And well, we have enough examples from big countries on the world which are working more to one direction, and we know probably a lot of examples from the history of 20th century, but even from the 21st century. And of course, it's just a short way, so it's not really very effective. Well, we don't like. I don't like to go now deeper why and what is going on when. But of course, it's not a way. And especially for such countries as we, for example, as we Lithuanians, we are not so big countries, you notice, with 3 million. So we have, of course, to look for many possibilities to cooperate. And I would say even broader, you know, not just cooperate with cultural actors from another countries, but what is very important, and for example, in the vision of the new Lithuanian Culture Institute, which we are creating at the moment, how the culture could cooperate with economy, how the culture could cooperate with education and with another spheres. So for example, I just could give some examples from my from this my life when I've been in the field of cultural diplomacy, in different embassies where I work. I was trying always to work really together with our attaches for economy. So just for example, making whatever Lithuanian Culture Days, well, it's all form, whatever, let's say the Lithuanian Culture Days, to connect them with economical mission. And you know, always is that, because to the people which are coming from a business sector, for them, this is very positive sign as well. So my vision is that we have really to connect first, like work, of course, with both sides, to create together the projects, to make research together, and to look how we could cooperate, not just regionally, but for example as well with another regions. But another question is, of course, how we could get border. And because this culture economy factor is becoming even more and more important, even for example with coming of NGO sector. So it is very important as well. So border, yeah.
We smoothly move to another question. You already mentioned that you have a chance to all the time already in a, let's say, ongoing basis to adjust and to fine-tune the points which you have described as a milestones of the cultural policy. I mean, because even in cultural policy research papers, I noticed this shift. Because classical, I mean, established policy model was linear, and because it's perceived as a rational, objective, analytical process. So some very smart people and experienced people like cultural policy experts, they think about what is necessary and where are the gaps. They identify needs. So which is called, we have already in our jargon, this term, needs assessment. And they write this cultural policy, and then other people start to implement this. But actually, in reality, it doesn't work. We know that now all over the world, people understand that it is not linear process. So, so it's not like 2 points, a series of like a sequential phases, starting from identification of a problem or issue and ending with a set of activities to solve or deal with it. Because between there are non-linear process requires consensus building between participants of the process. Because if people don't agree, you could impose on them this scheme or this model, and simply they don't accept it. So it's not compatible. Then it should be participation of key stakeholders, interest groups, because sometimes we use in English this word stakeholder, but sometimes it's only interest groups, because different groups have different interests. Participating in cultural exchange of cultural values and making culture as such. And in addition to official culture, officially accepted culture, there are always underground layers. Yes, and then there are sometimes clashes and conflicts between different understanding of culture. And so we should obtain compromises, mobilize resources, and distribute them, let's say, justly. then we have to plan contingencies. Like there are situations like we're experiencing now. It's a COVID, which usually is called black swan, something which you never expected, but it appears before you as a black swan. And at last, adaptation to real changing conditions, because might be different than you imagined at the beginning of the process. So I mentioned all this because cultural policy should be closer to reality. And my next question to you is, how do you take into account interests of various groups? How define the agents of change? Agents of change is another established term. So the agents of change agents are people, individuals with perceive change as opportunity and not as a threat. Because not everybody will applaud our ideas about how to change our life to the better, because they may have a different opinion and maybe their interests will be damaged in the course of these changes. We know, for example, for many years, I know that Minister of Culture of Azerbaijan is not in a position to completely change system of culture houses and culture enterprises, I mean, organizations like libraries and so on, because it affects interests of people. They get their small but still some salaries. And if you resolutely will tell tomorrow that let's completely change the system, of course, these people will be opposed. I mean, among them are, of course, now people who are listening to us. So it's really very dramatic and very, let's say, painful process. So we have to take into account all the interests and make it that people are really come to consensus and have understanding of the changes which are necessary for the country. So I would like you to share with us some good cases of how you solve this and how you attract different groups and whom you consider agents of change in Lithuania.
Oh, well, Jahangir, you know, so very complicated, very easy question, and well, probably we could discuss it weeks and weeks, and just really exchange of good practices and good examples. I'm absolutely agree. So, well, first, culture, of course, is very dynamic, and it is our, well, it is our strength, and we are strong because of that as well. So I would say just that easy way is not our way in the culture, and well, and what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So of course we are confronting sometimes, especially in regions, with the same situation that people are working many years and we don't like to change anything. But then when we are just looking to culture statistics, we see that in the regional part, like in the regions, people are not so much connected to God. So it's very, very, very connected, everything here. So it's just one unity. And well, of course, we are trying all the time to find creative ways. And I think from another side, as I thought, we are in the culture very lucky, because we have thousands and thousands of very creative people who are always looking for creative solutions and creative ways. So what is very important, of course, to open the way for but not mostly young people, but not always. So if I would say just now that it's more or less young people, probably as well not. So it depends. But because of that, I mentioned this open and sustainable and attractive culture. So how to make that, well, different parts and different groups would become the participants of culture processes. From the side we would organize and they would do from themselves, or even if they are not able to, just to become the audience. Mm-hmm. It's very important as well. And we are coming back to education, for example. Like it's always
Yes.
the same question, how we educate, how we are talking to whatever, for example, we from our part from Minister of Culture, how we are talking and how we find dialogue with the Minister of Education, how we connect our activities. But you know, if I would like now, of course, I would be happy if I would now give you a simple and very clear question, but it's
Yes.
not answer, sorry, but it's not possible. When I am looking to Lithuanian Cultural Foundation, because I mentioned we have an institution established probably 8 or 9 years ago, we call Lithuanian Culture Board. More like the function is to research what is going on in cultural field, and another function and another task we have, it is to distribute, well, to distribute money we give for cultural field. And when I'm looking, for example, to which projects we give, which projects got finance, because of course we have much more people who are coming with great projects as we were able to finance. So I should say that, of course, with this part of cultural field, which is non-state part, is getting even more and more stronger. And I'm very happy about it. Of course, like, well, in broad sense, we call it cultural industries. I call, like, it's very, very broad definition. And even if it is small theater company, it could be, for example, a small cinema, or I don't know, even small initiative in the region. But we really, when I look now, for example, on this year, for this non-state organizations in culture field, now is April. It means in 4 months, they already got 15 million for the activities. So it means that they are really supported. And of course, for example, in the time of COVID time, like in the last year and this year, of course, for them was harder to live. But some of them somehow managed. And for example, today I looked once more to our foundation, looking which kind of applications are coming in, and I noticed that many organizations somehow survive, and they are alive, and they are making their activities. They continue to make their activities. Yes. I should say that on Monday we reopened all cultural organizations in events with some limits. We can, like in outside cultural events, could be organized with not more as 500 persons, not more, and just 50% from audience.
It's good news, but we are still have no cultural activities allowed due to COVID restrictions. So unfortunately, the time is getting very short, but I know that you have prepared some good examples of creative solutions.
VILNIUS International Film Festival, it is the biggest international film festival in Lithuania. I don't know, probably about 15 or probably even more years we already exist, and we are really very lucky, because the ceremony of opening the festival was on the same day we had the Thursday of quarantine. So could you imagine, everybody was just prepared to go to the opening ceremony. And on the morning we got like in the news, we heard that it won't be possible. So for VILNIUS International Film Festival, because we were absolutely not prepared for it, it was just crash and really just just really, really very bad situation. And because, as you know, like film festival, of course, you need cinemas. So cinemas were now just closed. So we had to find some solutions how we could survive, because all movies were already there, everything was paid for, all tickets, like how you could give back the tickets. So the solution, one of many solutions we found, was that we organized so-called Aero Cinema. We thought that because, as you know, we were not allowed to fly away as well, so it means that the airport was more or less empty. I mean, not empty, it was like the space with many airplanes, but airplane, like as airport, this area didn't work. So we organized a big screening in the airport. So it means that you are coming as not with car, of course it was with car. In one car was possible to like for one family or two persons. So everybody was controlled. That it is one family or just two different persons, but of course not eight persons or whatever. No, so as well limited, and everybody got with the car to this area where normally airplanes are flying or arriving or approaching. So it becomes really, of course, in the evening it was even better, because when you could see like screening in the darkness, you can see better. But it was as well, for example, we organized for children on the weekends, children movies, and they organized like on the evening, not for children movies. And it was absolutely amazing. This screening became a sensation, of course, in Lithuania, but I should say that around the world as well. And it was mentioned many times, and in news outlets such as the New York Times.
Yes, I also came across this news from Guardian when I read about interesting initiatives about in COVID times. So there are, thank you, Ashley, for sharing that. So you see it, 25 millions. Yes,
the last year, but like the news are that in the April they got 50 million. But even like, you know, we need more. Actually, the need is bigger.
Yes. So it's already time. Actually, I would like to allocate some maybe 10 or 15 minutes for questions from the audience, because I understand that most interesting is if you answer the questions coming from participants. So please, if let's say organizing team from Cultural Accelerator will help us to disclose the questions which are on our desk.
Well, we do have some questions, but for many of them you already tackled in your discussion. So there is one about how to make effective bottom-up campaigns, how to reach the government with your proposals and suggestions. And are there any alternative independent platforms? Like what should this kind of platforms do in order to create the bridge of communication, which is not so that you have an open discussion, not behind the closed doors, but openly sharing concerns and ideas. So this is one question, and we already have a few more. But while maybe Gabrielė could answer this, and Jahangir Malim, you could read the one addressed to you.
But, you know, it's difficult for me to answer because, well, of course, it depends on legislation. And how I already mentioned, because we had this issue many years, and I don't know, probably more or less already 90. So we already managed to get some like we have tools Of course, it was a process. Of course, not from Thursday or first year we saw the needs and allocated like not such small money for non-state organizations, but well, it's always the time of legislation. So I would say that I don't know, we like to go to, what my way would be to probably to make some kind of association or something like that, where you could bring your interest in the organization which would delegate or advocate in the Ministry of Culture. So from the Ministry of Culture, we have to see and they have to I don't know, we have to understand that it's important to support and to develop the sector as well. Because, well, just with state organizations, budget organizations, it is what Jahangir, you told in the beginning. People then, they have work. I wouldn't like to say that everybody who is working for a state is not creative or what. No. But you know, it's easy. You are always getting your money, and you don't like to really to think along. But this sector with NGO is really creative. But what we need, we have to go and to say, look, we are here and everywhere we are. So we would like to be a part of cultural field as well and financed as well. So I would begin probably with some kind of association or whatever, where it could come and would be together with people like the same who think like me and would go forward.
May I ask you to make some clarification about the mechanism, how this, these funds are distributed? So do you have regular grant calls or yes? So how many times a year?
You know, depends on the topic, but mostly 4. I mean, spring, summer, autumn. Of course, in the situation of COVID, we had more because of really
urgency,
additional money. Yes.
Yes.
But normally, because all grants, and for example, all grants for research, all grants for creative projects, they go as well. Everything is going through this Lithuanian Cultural Board.
Do you apply, let's say, the model of matching funds, so that if somebody applies, he or she has to provide evidence of some funds which are already invested?
Probably it could be a benefit, probably not, depends. You know, depends really on the project, but well, mostly probably it would be a benefit. But it doesn't mean, probably it's possible that, for example, my partners are in Azerbaijan. It is not that I have to have there somebody from budget organization. No. It's like, it's absolutely depends on the project, how you organize and manage it.
Okay. So are there any more questions?
Yes, there is one question. It's about how to develop like online platform to sell craft art, and this comes from, as I understood, a person who's based in Czechia, and recently Czechia was included into UNESCO. Please correct me. It was included in UNESCO World.
It's Creative City of. I will tell you exactly. It's Creative City of crafts. Because there is a network of creative cities of UNESCO, and Czechia is included as the city of crafts. And by the way, Baku is included in this list as a city of design. So we have 2 cities in Azerbaijan. Do you have any in Lithuania in this network, creative cities? Do you know?
Yes, we do. If you would need then in the future context or whatever, let's write me shortly.
I think it's very practical. We could help this gentleman to. It's now so easy. There are a lot of platforms which charge little money for putting your stuff and opening online shop. So I think it's not a big problem. Not on the policy level.
Yes, and also
maybe it is our problem to organize workshops when people know that and they don't feel shy to apply in open. I'll give you just one example, which I was really encouraged. One my colleague at National Conservatory in Baku, it turns out that he started online course on orchestration and instrumentation for composers. And he on a very famous platform called Udemy, you know, Udemy. And on Udemy, he has got already almost 500, students, which pay him. So sitting in Baku, he teaches people in America, in Britain, in France, and he gets really very high responses. So I read that somebody writes that I got a master's in composition, but your course opened me in a very clear way how to orchestrate music. So I mean, he was courageous to start it, and he is winning. So I invite everybody to follow this kind of cases. Okay.
I just wanted to add that as this week is the week of policy making, our next speakers will be representative of the Ministry of Culture, the advisor of Minister Karimov, Mr. Elnur Aliyev, who has it's interesting that we have diplomats that are also Gabrielė Žaidytė. She's been working a lot in the field of diplomacy, and also Elnur Aliyev was a diplomat before he was appointed to the Ministry of Culture. And the idea of cultural diplomacy, I think it's one of the directions where we could definitely reconsider how to present Azerbaijan and how to integrate it into international culture. And given, like commenting on the previous questions and what we've discussed before, how to reach out to the decision makers and the stakeholders, I guess that session in particular could be a way of establish this dialogue and to have a conversation, as one of our attendees suggested, to have this like open communication and discussion. So this would be a very probably first steps, and to my knowledge, first initiative of this kind, where a representative of the Ministry of Culture joins an independent program as a guest speaker to share the current status of the policy making and openly discuss the present challenges and opportunities of the sector. I would be happy to continue this discussion, but as we already passed 1 hour since our event, I would really like to thank our dear speakers, Jahangir Selimkhanov, Gabrielė Žaidytė, for the participation and for your support of our activity. Please, if you have anything to add before we say goodbye to our audience.
Thank you very much. Well, I didn't have a possibility to see everybody, but I was really happy to be with you, and I had a feeling that we are together. So thank you very much, Asli, for inviting me, and thank you very much, Jahangir, that we had a discussion. Thank you.
Yes. On my side, I would like to say thank you to Asli for her, let's say, I would say, stubborn stamina to raise the questions of very important for our country, and she has found very elegant way to discuss it, because through Svenska Institutet, Swedish Institute grant, and Trans-Europal. So for me, I'm grateful to Svenska Institutet because it is on a personal matter, because my daughter has got Visby scholarship, and she studies now culture and change, which is exactly the topic which we are discussing now. So what should be the change in culture. So she's also supported by Svenska Institutet.
Jahangir Malim, Gabrielė, thanks a lot for your support for the event. And we see that more than 85% of our attendees gave us the highest top high grades. So thank you again.